Hey friends, Dr. Motley here with the Ancient Health Podcast, and today we're going to talk about melatonin. We're going to talk about how this molecule, how this hormone can help regulate your sleep, increase your immune function, and also be very neuroprotective. One of the main questions we want to answer though is, do you need to take melatonin, extra melatonin, to help you with your sleep? So let's go over the basics. We're going to talk about melatonin, where it comes from, how it's produced. Also, let's talk about how it helps you with your increased immune function and being very neuroprotective. And what are the safe levels? That's another question. Should you take low amount? Should you take high amounts? Does your genetics have a factor? Yes, they do. And we're going to talk about what are the infections that could be in the head that could actually affect your pineal's production of melatonin. So first of all, let's talk about melatonin. Melatonin is known as the quarterback of the hormone system. It comes from the pineal gland, which is a gland that looks like a pine cone. Many consider the pineal gland the master gland, as compared to the pituitary gland, because the pituitary gland produces 14 different types of hormones. But the pineal gland is a gland that produces the melatonin, which tells the rest of the body when it's night and when it's day, when it's light and when it's dark. How do your glands, how do your organs know when to function properly if the glands or the organs don't know when it's night or day? They have to know the time of day to produce their function, their physiological functions at the right time. So that's where there's an argument. To me, both glands, all the hormones, all have their place. So let's talk about the basics of melatonin. Now, there's a great book that I just read called Melatonin, the Master Molecule, and it's by a good friend, Dr. John Lawrence. And Dr. John Lawrence is a doctor outside, right in Sarasota. And he talks about in his book about the effects of not only your sleep being helped, but about how the overall composition of the body, the physical factors of the body, are affected with this melatonin. And when you research it more, he answers many questions, especially the question, should I take little or a lot? Is it safe? Will my body stop producing melatonin on its own if I take too much? Now, he goes into deep dives within this question, and I'm going to try to answer it in basically a format that's simple to follow, but hopefully I can do it justice. So melatonin is produced by tryptophan or from tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid that you get in your food sources, such as salmon, tuna, beef, almonds, turkey. Whenever you have a big meal and you feel very tired, it means that tryptophan is being produced into melatonin. So tryptophan is broken down into serotonin by an enzyme known as TPH. TPH is from the gene TPH. Genes in your genetic code make enzymes. Enzymes break down big substances into smaller substances, or they help speed up processes. That's what enzymes do. So TPH helps with your tryptophan being broken down into serotonin through processes called acetylation. Another fancy term, but it just means that tryptophan is broken down to serotonin within the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland houses this, and the serotonin is then further broken down into melatonin through another gene known as the DDC. And the DDC is a vitamin D dependent gene that needs proper amounts of vitamin D to help with the serotonin breaking down into melatonin. So your genes help determine how well you break down tryptophan into melatonin. If you get recessive genes from your parents in the forms of the TPH being recessive or the DDC that's recessive, then you won't produce melatonin properly from the amount of tryptophan you eat. So you could eat tons of tryptophan but produce very little amounts of melatonin if you can't break it down properly. Let's say you got dominant, strong genes from both parents that are really dominant in the TPH or the DDC. You then have more capability of taking small amounts of tryptophan and breaking it down into melatonin more efficiently. So your genes have much to do with how much melatonin you produce. So this helps you in determining how much melatonin would actually help you in sleep, or if it help you at all. If you have dominant genes where you're actually able to produce high amounts of melatonin, then you may not need much melatonin. I hope that makes sense. So the health of your pineal gland helps you with melatonin production, but also the health of the genes helps you with proper melatonin balance. So we have this process happening within the pineal gland. Now, not only does the pineal gland produce melatonin, but also the gut and also your mitochondria within your cells. So your gut function, if you have good gut habits, if you have too many inflammatory foods, you'll have decreased melatonin production. If you have the right foods, proper unrefined food sources, balance, and plenty of sunlight, research is showing that this helps with pineal gland function and melatonin increase. So if you have diets that are high in refined carbs, starches, sugars, trans fats, if you have a diet that has many forms of refined or processed foods, these can lead to gut dysfunction, ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel syndrome, leaky gut, ileocecal valve syndrome. All of these can decrease your melatonin production within the gut. Melatonin will jump into your bloodstream. It attaches to every cell in the body. It signals to the body to help do what? Relax. It helps start and moderate cascades within your cells to help increase your circulation or your relaxation in the evening time before you go to bed. So we have this process. If you have these types of foods, I want to mention too, corn can be very genetically modified. Cow dairy, and even grains, if they're high amounts, can cause inflammatory issues within the gut affecting melatonin. So you want to make sure that you get out the inflammatory food processes or food sources. Then we want to add in a couple extra things. Since it's created in the gut, since it's created in the mitochondria, and since your pineal is involved, the next big thing is you have to have proper amounts of sunlight. Mitochondria, the little power factories in your cells, and your pineal gland need light to indicate when it's day. So then it shuts down the production of high amounts of melatonin because you don't need that much during the day. At night, you need higher amounts of melatonin. So you don't need to be staying up at night looking at blue screens on your iPad or your tablets. You need to make sure that you have a proper time of starting the day and a proper time of ending the day. So you want to make sure that you see light first thing in the morning, 7 to 9 a.m., kick off your pineal gland to help start the process of the circadian rhythm balance. At night, when you go to bed, make sure that your windows are closed, that it's completely dark in your room, and you're not looking at a TV or blue light after 7:30 to 8 p.m. Those are some simple steps. Don't keep your brain activated and your pineal gland shut down. EMFs, electromagnetics, they can affect your pineal gland. So at night before you go to bed, turn those off. Turn anything that could be electromagnetic radiation affecting your body at night. So the mitochondria, the light sources, the amount of light information that goes through the eyes, through the skin, through the overall area of the body are recorded in the pineal gland. So we have to make sure we moderate what we eat and also how much light we get and how and when we go to sleep. Set up a daily process of sleeping at certain rates, certain hours every night. If it's 8 hours, great. But make sure you get the proper light in the morning and shutting off all your lights at night. Next thing is cleaning out the cranium, cleaning out the ears, the nose, the sinuses, the teeth. If you have a history of strep, staph, Lyme disease, parasites, chronic ear infections, chronic sinus infections, chronic allergies, oral cavitations, or chronic gum disease. All of these infections can make their way into the bloodstream and can get into the pineal gland or affect the pineal gland. The reason it's so important is because the pineal gland is formed outside the blood-brain barrier. So as an embryo, your pineal gland is outside, so it's not regulated at a higher rate as the rest of the brain. The brain tries to operate and keep everything in very close balance so it doesn't get overwhelmed. Your blood-brain barrier is a filter to not allow infections or toxins or pesticides to get through the arteries into the deep tissues of the brain. But the pineal gland's outside of that. So sometimes toxins can get to it easier. But it also allows the pineal gland to absorb more tryptophan from your foods and produce 20 to 40 times more amount of that particular hormone of melatonin than other hormones within the brain. So this regulation mechanism doesn't affect the pineal gland as much as the other parts of the brain. So you can see that it's a little exposed, but your body is meant to produce lots of melatonin. So we want to make sure we clean out the infections of the sinuses, the teeth, and the ears, and the brain. In other podcasts, and even some of the information I give in my Instagram feed and in through my membership, I talk about cleaning out the infections and the herbs that help. Herbals, Chinese herbs, astragalus, or golden thread supreme, or Malea supreme. These help clean out the infections within the sinuses or within the head. If you clean that out and get the lymph nodes to drain these toxins out, if you clean out the lymph nodes, you keep the infections from getting into or affecting the pineal gland. So we want to work on cleaning up chronic sinus infections, head infections. If you suspect you have a chronic strep or staph, I would go to Microgen DX, Microgen GN DX. They got a great laboratory in Dallas or near Dallas, and they check for over 50,000 different types of proteins of different infections, depending on the test you want. So you need to take these proper steps to help with proper melatonin because it helps you determine how much melatonin will be good for you to sleep. So I hope this makes sense because let's say you had really good genes from your parents to produce lots of melatonin. That means you may not need but 3 milligrams a night or 5. But what if you had genes that are very poor to produce melatonin from your tryptophan? You're not going to produce a lot of melatonin. But what if your diet is not the best? What if you have infections in your head? You add that on to having genes that don't produce melatonin, you're going to need a lot more melatonin. There's individuals, even through Dr. John Lawrence's products and his research, that people need 200 milligrams of melatonin a night to go to sleep, to heal. So you could have good genes. You could have poor genes. But if you have all the inflammatory foods, if you have all the infections, if you have EMF, and if you don't get proper sleep patterns or sunlight, and water, you need water, you are not going to have efficient melatonin production, which means it's going to dysregulate or make you have to take more melatonin. So the more efficient your body can be by getting all these outside factors under control, and also if you know your genes, there's a gene test that you can look on the bio, and a link in my bio, you can find if you have the TPH or the DDC enzyme issue. So these, along with getting rid of the things that are detrimental to the pineal gland, would help you take less melatonin. But if you've had Lyme disease or parasites or chronic infections and poor gut health, you may need up to 20 milligrams at night. You may need a suppository with 200 milligrams. Remember, please ask your primary care doctor if this is for you, because this is not talked about in mainstream media, mainstream healthcare. Once you get more melatonin, you'll heal the nerves. It's a huge antioxidant. You'll also help protect the nerves, the coating. You increase your immune function because you're turning on your mitochondria. Melatonin production in the mitochondria has been interrelated to how much ATP and energy you produce. So the better your melatonin, the better your mitochondrial production of energy, the healthier cells. It starts within your gut. It starts with sunlight. It starts with water. These are the basic fundamentals that you need to help with regulation of melatonin. And you get to find out if your genes are there that, not say determine, but if they can be activated by toxins to not allow you to have proper melatonin levels. Genes are only turned on if there's toxins in your environment. Reduce the toxins and your genes will act properly. Even if you have recessive genes from your parents, you can still have moderate amounts of melatonin and take less if you get all the toxins and all the infections out of your body. So, take those steps. Also, I like to include minerals and vitamins. The breakdown of the tryptophan down to melatonin eventually means that there are certain types of minerals such as magnesium, selenium, low amounts of zinc, vitamins such as Bs, a nice B complex that's a good quality, vitamin C in high levels, also vitamin D, vitamin A, and vitamin K. These all have been shown to help with the processes of the genes, helps with the enzymes of the genes to break down tryptophan into serotonin, then into melatonin. So if you add all these together, you can get melatonin in a liquid form or pill form and start off with 3 milligrams or 5. Get to a level where you have uninterrupted sleep, completely dark room, and that you have sleep patterns and bowel movements are healthier, and your energy levels during the day are healthier. If you get to a level of any type of melatonin and it's worse, then you need to change the source of melatonin or see if these other factors are involved. Toxins, Wi-Fi, electromagnetics, genetics. So if you get these under control, you're going to see that you can moderate your melatonin intake. So this answers the question, should I take a lot or should I take a little? Consider these other factors, but start slow and steady. Start with low amounts, work your way up till we have those good signals in your body, and it allows you to have proper sleep throughout the night. This is going to answer the question if you should have melatonin in your diet or you should have melatonin as a regular basis for you. Now, I think I've covered all the grounds that I wanted to mention. So if we're talking about cleaning up the body and doing these other things to help with melatonin production, please know this. As you start to heal the pineal gland, you want to look into proper nutrients to help the pineal gland itself. You want to make sure you don't do fluoridated water. You want to make sure that you check for metals too. Heavy metals such as aluminum, cadmium, nickel, mercury have been related to hardening parts of the brain, i.e. the pineal or the pituitary. You want to make sure that with this, that as you start to get rid of the metal toxicity, you can get a heavy metals test from MicroGenDx. You could also get it from Great Plains Laboratory. But if you find out the higher levels of metals, if they're in the system, start doing a metal detoxification pathway, and that will also help with your melatonin production. So I want you to take all of these simple formats. It may seem like a lot, but I want you to go over these steps, and then you can add in the melatonin. Because again, not only does it help balance your circadian rhythm and your sleep, but it will make your immune system work very, very well. If you've had chronic Lyme or parasites, if you've had chronic viral infections, strep or staph, supplementing with decent to high levels of melatonin has been shown through clinical research to increase your body's ability to get rid of these infections. Infections, gut health have everything to do with how well your melatonin works in your body. I want to make sure through my notes that I get everything related. Another thing, if you have chronic mood issues, chronic problems within your brain, as in depression, anxiety, OCD, ADD, ADHD, then I want you to remember that DDC gene that breaks down serotonin to melatonin is also helping you with serotonin balance and dopamine. These things, ADHD, ADD, OCD, all of these are very interrelated to the DDC gene. That's why I mentioned the minerals and vitamins. So the healthier your gut, the better minerals and vitamins you take, getting rid of the infections will help you with your mood balance. Furthermore, if your melatonin is increased and you sleep better at night, the serotonin and dopamine in your gut is being built. So more sleep, more dopamine, more serotonin. These all interrelate. So we want to make sure that our melatonin is at proper levels. Maybe you need a higher amount of melatonin at the beginning, and as you heal these other steps, take and eliminate these toxins, help with your sleep patterns, your light regulation, you may need to lighten up, but that would be great. You'll eventually find a level that's going to be good for you. So guys, I hope this podcast opens up your eyes to the processes of melatonin. Please check out Dr. Laurent's book about melatonin. Look into the research. See if some of his products work well for you. And please clean out the sinuses, clean out the ears, clean out the nose, the cavitations, the jawbones. If you have any problems with teeth or gums, please get a cone beam scan and see if there's any infections in the teeth or in the gums. And I want you to get those regulated and checked. And if you get the headache cleaned out, you will see that melatonin will be more effective for you. You won't have to take as high amounts. But again, higher amounts are not bad if you have a problem regulating it genetically. But start cleaning the body out, and you're going to see that you're going to use it more efficiently. Please give us some questions or send us some questions or comments, because we want to make sure that you're sleeping at optimum levels. Well, there's going to be some things in the show notes that are going to tell you about Dr. Laurent's book, and there's also some extra information about some of his products. So guys, I hope that you have a blessed day. Please let us know what you think about this, and check out melatonin. It is one of the hormones that I've seen work so well in the past 2 years with my patients. I'm often surprised of this antioxidant that's not been researched as heavily as it has been recently. Guys, take it easy. Talk soon.